The medical bay of the research vessel Luminous Dawn hummed with alien technology as Chief Medical Officer worked frantically over the unconscious human. The creature's pale skin was mottled with burns and bruises, its breathing shallow and irregular. According to the ship's scanners, this was only the second human specimen they had ever encountered in their 3 centuries of deep space exploration. "Vitals are dropping again," announced his assistant, Dr. Al, her crystalline fingers dancing over the biomonitor controls. "This species has such a fragile physiology. I'm not certain our medical protocols will be sufficient." 4 eyes focused intently on the readings. They were a peaceful race of explorers and scientists, their elongated forms and translucent skin making them appear almost ethereal compared to the solid, compact build of the human before them. They had discovered this lone survivor drifting in an escape pod near the wreckage of what appeared to be a human transport vessel. "Run another cellular analysis," ordered, his voice carrying the melodic tones typical of his species. "Cross-reference with the biological data from the first human contact 40 years ago. There must be something we're missing." The human stirred slightly, mumbling something in the harsh, guttural language that found almost impossible to pronounce. Through their translation matrix, they could make out fragments. "Crew, pirates, they took everything." Dr. Al leaned closer to the biobed. "Chief, I believe this human was attacked by raiders. The weapon signatures match those of the pirate clans. The damage to their vessel was extensive." His expression darkened. They were notorious throughout this sector of the galaxy for their brutality and complete disregard for sentient life. They were a warrior race that valued strength above all else, and they had been terrorizing peaceful traders and explorers for decades. Most civilized species gave them a wide berth. "Continue treatment," decided. "We cannot let this being die on our watch. The humans have shown themselves to be remarkably resourceful in the past. Perhaps this one can provide valuable information about tactics." Hours passed as the medical team worked tirelessly. They adapted their healing technologies, modified their medications, and carefully monitored every vital sign. The human's strange binary cardiovascular system proved particularly challenging, as did their unusual brain chemistry. But gradually, slowly, the readings began to stabilize. The human's eyes opened suddenly, causing several of the medical staff to step back in alarm. The creatures had such intense, predatory-looking eyes, unlike the gentle, large orbs of their own species. The human's gaze darted around the medical bay, taking in the alien technology and the strange beings surrounding the biobed. Where am I?" The human croaked, voice rough from dehydration and trauma. Activated the translation matrix and spoke slowly. "You are safe. You are aboard the vessel Luminous Dawn. I am Chief Medical Officer. We found you drifting in space near the debris of your ship." The human tried to sit up, then winced and fell back against the biobed. "The Meridian? My crew. Did anyone else survive?" Al consulted her scanner readings. "I am sorry. We detected no other life signs in the wreckage. You appear to be the sole survivor." The human's face contorted with pain that had nothing to do with physical injuries. "Damn, Sarah old. They didn't deserve to die like that." The human's hands clenched into fists. "They hit us hard and fast. We were just a civilian transport carrying medical supplies to the outer colonies." "Medical supplies?" inquired, his interest piqued. "Vaccines, surgical equipment, emergency medications. The colony on 442C has been dealing with an outbreak of fever. We were their only hope." The human struggled to sit up again, this time successfully. "How long have I been unconscious? Those people are counting on those supplies." Dr. Al checked her chronometer. "Approximately 18 standard hours. However, I must inform you that they took everything from your vessel before destroying it." The cargo bay was completely emptied. The human's face went through a series of expressions that they had difficulty interpreting, but the final result was clear: cold, determined anger. "Those bastards probably don't even know what they stole. They'll try to sell medical supplies as weapons components or dump them when they realize they're worthless to pirates." "I am sorry," said gently. "We know how devastating it must be to lose your crew and fail in your mission, but you survived, and that is not insignificant. Perhaps when you have recovered, you can find another way to help your colony." The human looked at him with those strange, intense eyes. "What did you say your name was?" "Yes, I am Chief Medical Officer of the Science Consortium. This is Dr. Al, my assistant." The human extended a hand, another gesture that seemed strange to the I'm commander, formerly of the merchant vessel Meridian, and I want to thank you for saving my life. Cautiously touched the human's hand with his own elongated fingers, mimicking the gesture. The human's skin was warm and rough compared to his own smooth, cool surface. It was our duty as sentient beings to offer aid. Duty or not, you didn't have to help me. A lot of species in this sector would have just left me to die in space. His voice carried a weight of experience. They have a reputation for being peaceful, but I've met plenty of peaceful races that won't lift a finger to help others when it might put them in danger. Dr. Al adjusted her scanner settings. Commander, your physiology is quite fascinating. Your species seems remarkably adaptable. The injuries you sustained should have been fatal to most beings, yet you survived through sheer biological tenacity. Managed a weak smile. Humans are stubborn that way, we don't die easy. Her expression grew serious again. But I need to ask you something. Are you planning to head anywhere near the system? Consulted his navigation charts. Our research mission was taking us through that general region of space, yes. However, I must warn you that it would be extremely dangerous. They have been increasingly active in that area. We have limited defensive capabilities. I know it's a lot to ask, said, struggling to keep her voice steady. But those colonists, there are over 10,000 people on 442C, including families with children. Without those medical supplies, hundreds of them could die, maybe thousands. The medical team exchanged glances. Their species valued life above all else, but they were also pragmatic. Engaging with them could mean the destruction of their own vessel and the loss of their entire crew of 43 researchers and explorers. Commander, said carefully, I understand your concern for your people, but we must consider the safety of our own crew. We are scientists, not warriors. Our vessel has basic shields and minimal weapons against a raiding fleet. I'm not asking you to fight them, interrupted, then caught herself and spoke more diplomatically. I'm sorry. I know you've already done more than enough by saving my life. It's just, I've been to 442C. I've seen those kids playing in the settlement squares, watched their parents working to build something good in the middle of nowhere. The idea of them dying from something preventable. She trailed off, and for a moment the medical bay was silent except for the humming of the biomonitors. Dr. Al spoke up unexpectedly. Chief, what if we could obtain replacement supplies? Surely the consortium has medical resources that could help these people. His 4 eyes blinked in sequence, a sign of deep thought among his people. The regulations regarding sharing consortium medical technology with non-aligned species are quite strict. However, he paused, accessing his ship's database, there are provisions for humanitarian aid in extreme circumstances. Felt a spark of hope. You would do that, risk bureaucratic trouble to help people you've never met. The Science Consortium was founded on principles of discovery and the betterment of all sentient life, explained. If we can prevent suffering and death, we have a moral obligation to act. Over the following hours, as strength returned, she found herself amazed by the dedication to helping her and the colony. They worked tirelessly to adapt their medical supplies for human physiology, consulted with experts across their fleet via subspace communication, and even modified some of their research equipment to serve as emergency medical devices. Your people are incredible, told as she watched him carefully calibrating a medication synthesizer to produce human-compatible antibiotics. Most species I've encountered are primarily concerned with their own interests. Perhaps that is because most species have not learned what we discovered long ago, replied without looking up from his work. In the vastness of space, we are all fragile beings trying to survive and find meaning. The arbitrary boundaries we draw between us and them become meaningless when faced with the infinite dark. Watch the alien doctor work, noting the careful precision of his movements and the genuine concern in his large, gentle eyes. She had encountered dozens of alien species in her years as a merchant marine, but few had shown this level of selfless dedication to helping others. Chief, Dr. Al called from across the medical bay, I've completed the biosynthesis of the fever suppressants. The molecular structure should be compatible with human metabolism. As they prepared for the journey to 442C, couldn't help but worry about what they might encounter. They controlled much of the space between their current position and the colony, and their reputation for brutality was well earned. They showed no mercy to anyone they perceived as weak, and they would certainly see the peaceful as easy prey. "Are you sure about this?" asked as they reviewed the navigation charts. "The don't negotiate. If they find us, they'll attack without warning." His expression remained calm. "Commander, my people have survived by avoiding conflict whenever possible. We are not warriors, but we are not helpless either. Our vessel has advanced stealth capabilities and sophisticated sensors. We will reach the colony." As the luminous Dawn entered hyperspace, heading toward the system and an uncertain fate, found herself reflecting on the remarkable beings who had saved her life. In a galaxy filled with predators and opportunists, they represented something rare and precious, a species that truly lived up to their ideals. She had no way of knowing that this act of kindness would set in motion events that would reshape the balance of power in their entire sector of the galaxy. All she knew was that, for the first time since the attack, she had hoped that the people of 442C might survive. The journey through hyperspace gave time to fully recover from her injuries and learn more about her rescuers. They were natural teachers, eager to share their knowledge and learn about human culture in return. Found herself particularly fascinated by their approach to problem-solving, which emphasized patience, careful observation, and elegant solutions over brute force. "Your species has such an interesting perspective on conflict resolution," observed during one of their conversations. "Most humans would have armed themselves heavily before making this journey." "Violence breeds violence," replied simply. "When you approach every problem as if it requires a weapon, you begin to see enemies everywhere. We prefer to seek understanding first." Hoped that philosophy would be enough to see them through what was coming. They understood only strength and violence, and she feared that the peaceful nature might prove to be their downfall. But as she watched the alien crew work together with quiet efficiency and unwavering dedication to their mission of mercy, she began to understand why they had managed to survive and thrive in a dangerous galaxy. Their strength wasn't in their weapons or their aggression. It was in their absolute commitment to doing what was right, regardless of the cost. 3 days into their journey toward 442C, the luminous Dawn's sensors detected the massive energy signatures of a battle fleet blocking their path. Stood on the bridge beside Captain, the ship's commanding officer, watching the tactical display with growing dread. 12 vessels, reported the sensor operator, a young named. Heavy cruisers and destroyers. They appear to be conducting systematic patrols of all hyperspace exit points leading to the system. Captain, whose translucent blue skin seemed to pale even further, turned to. "Commander, this is beyond our capabilities. We cannot possibly evade a fleet of that size." Studied the tactical display, her mind racing through possibilities. The ships were arranged in a perfect blockade formation, with overlapping sensor fields that would detect any approaching vessel long before it could reach the system. Even the luminous Dawn's advanced stealth technology wouldn't be enough to slip past that many ships. They're not just patrolling, realized. They're waiting for something or someone. Chief Medical Officer joined them on the bridge, having completed his work on the medical supplies. "Captain, the humanitarian aid packages are ready for delivery. We have enough synthesized medications to treat the entire colony's population twice over." "That may not matter now," said sadly, gesturing to the tactical display. "We cannot reach our destination." Felt the familiar weight of responsibility settling on her shoulders. These peaceful beings had risked everything to help people they had never met, and now they were trapped because of her mission. She couldn't let their sacrifice be in vain. "There might be another way," she said slowly. "The respect strength above all else. They have a concept called worthy prey, beings who fight back fiercely enough to earn their respect. What if we could make them an offer they couldn't refuse?" His 4 eyes blinked in confusion. "Commander, I do not understand. What could we possibly offer that would make them allow us passage?" "Me," said simply. "They know they destroyed my ship and killed my crew. If they found out I survived, they might be curious enough to let us approach. Pirates like to gloat over their victories." Captain's expression showed alarm. "That would be suicide, Commander. They do not negotiate. They would simply destroy us all." "Not necessarily," argued. "Culture values personal combat and individual strength. If I challenge their fleet commander to single combat, they might honor it. It's a long shot, but it's better than running away and letting those colonists die." The bridge fell silent as they contemplated this proposal. Their peaceful nature rebelled against the idea of deliberately seeking conflict, even in such a desperate situation. Dr. Al, who had joined them from the medical bay, spoke up unexpectedly. "Chief, remember the cultural analysis we conducted on the 3 years ago? They do have ritualized combat traditions. It is possible that Commander's plan could work." Felt a surge of gratitude toward the young doctor. "Exactly, and even if it doesn't work, at least we'll have tried. I can't live with myself knowing we had the supplies to save those people and did nothing." Captain considered the options. As a scientist and explorer, he was trained to analyze risks and benefits objectively. The logical choice was to retreat and preserve his crew, but the commitment to helping others weighed heavily on his decision. "Very well," he said finally. "We will attempt to make contact with the fleet. However, the moment they show hostile intent, we will retreat at maximum speed." Nodded, though privately she knew that if they decided to attack, the luminous dawn would never escape. The research vessel was fast, but not faster than military pursuit ships. "Open a channel to the fleet," ordered. The main flickered and then displayed the brutal face of a fleet commander. The alien's skin was dark gray and covered with ritual scarification that denoted his rank and battle honors. His eyes were small and predatory, and when he spoke, his voice was a harsh growl. "I am War Chief of the Crimson Fleet. You will surrender your vessel immediately or be destroyed." Stepped forward, making sure she was clearly visible on the transmission. "War Chief, I am commander of the human merchant vessel Meridian, the ship you destroyed 3 days ago." The commander leaned forward, his features showing sudden interest. "Impossible. All humans on that vessel were killed. I this personally." "One survived," said, keeping her voice steady. "And now I'm here with allies who helped me recover. I challenge you to single combat for the rite of passage through your territory." His harsh laughter filled the bridge. "You, a soft human, challenges me? This is amusing. Why would I honor such a challenge when I can simply destroy your vessel?" "Because you're afraid," said boldly, knowing she was taking an enormous risk. "You're afraid that a soft human might actually prove worthy of your respect. Your own warriors are watching this transmission. What will they think if their great war chief refuses to face someone he claims is beneath him?" The commander's expression darkened dangerously. Could see other warriors in the background of the transmission, and some of them seemed interested in her challenge. They were a warrior culture, and backing down from a direct challenge would be seen as weakness. "You have courage, human, I will grant you that," said after a long pause. "Very well, I accept your challenge, single combat aboard my flagship. When I kill you, your alien friends will be allowed to leave in peace." "And if I win?" asked. His laughter was even harsher this time. "If you somehow manage to defeat me, my fleet will allow you passage to wherever you wish to go. But do not harbor false hopes, human. I have killed over 200 beings in personal combat." The transmission ended, and felt her knees go weak. She had committed herself to fighting one of the most dangerous beings in the galaxy, armed with nothing but her human determination and whatever skills she had learned in her years as a merchant marine. "Commander," said gently, "this is madness. You cannot possibly defeat a war chief in combat. They are bred for violence and trained from birth to kill." Managed a weak smile. "Maybe, but humans have a few tricks that other species don't expect. We're stubborn, we're unpredictable, and we absolutely refuse to give up when people we care about are depending on us." Over the next hour, as the luminous dawn approached the flagship, prepared for what would likely be the last fight of her life. They did everything they could to help, analyzing physiology and providing her with what limited information they had about their combat techniques. "Their primary weakness appears to be their overconfidence," Dr. Al reported from her research. "Warriors typically rely on brute strength and intimidation. They may not expect sophisticated tactics from what they perceive as an inferior species." Nodded, though she knew that intelligence and tactics would only go so far against an opponent who outweighed her by at least 50 kilograms and had decades of combat experience. Her only real advantage was that would probably underestimate her. The flagship was a massive, brutal-looking vessel covered in weapon emplacements and armor plating. As the luminous dawn docked with it, could see warriors watching from viewports, eager to witness the spectacle of their war chief destroying a presumptuous human. "Remember," Captain said as prepared to board the enemy vessel, "you carry with you not only the hopes of the colony, but also the honor of our friendship. "We believe in you, Commander." Felt tears threatening to form in her eyes. These gentle beings had risked everything for strangers, and now they were watching her walk into what seemed like certain death. She couldn't let them down. The combat arena was a circular space in the heart of the flagship, surrounded by tiers of seats filled with bloodthirsty warriors. The floor was stained with the blood of countless previous combats, and the air was thick with the smell of violence and death. War Chief stood in the center of the arena, looking even more imposing than he had on the. He was nearly 7 feet tall, his muscles enhanced with cybernetic augmentations, and he carried a massive energy weapon that crackled with deadly power. "You may choose your weapon, human," he said mockingly, gesturing to a rack of various bladed weapons. "Though it will not matter, you will die regardless." Examined the weapons, her mind racing. Traditional combat was a losing proposition. She needed to change the rules of engagement. She selected a simple metal rod, ignoring the more elaborate blades and energy weapons. "An interesting choice," observed. "That weapon will not even penetrate my armor." "It's not meant to," replied, hefting the rod and testing its weight. "Sometimes the best weapon isn't the most obvious one." The war chief laughed and activated his energy weapon, causing the assembled warriors to cheer and howl for blood. Took a deep breath, centering herself, and remembered every lesson she had learned during her years in space. Charged forward with a roar, his energy weapon blazing. Waited until the last possible moment, then dove to the side, using the metal rod to trip the massive warrior. Stumbled but recovered quickly, spinning around to face her with renewed fury. "You fight like a coward," he bellowed. "Stand and face me." "I fight like a human," replied, already moving again. "We don't have your strength or your size, so we use what we have, our brains." For the next 10 minutes, led the war chief on a deadly dance around the arena. She used every dirty trick she could think of, every piece of improvised tactics she had learned in bar fights and emergency situations. She threw sand in his eyes, used the arena's geometry to her advantage, and constantly stayed in motion to avoid his devastating attacks. The warriors in the stands began to murmur among themselves. This was not the quick, brutal execution they had expected. The human was not only surviving, but actually making their mighty war chief look clumsy and frustrated. Knew she couldn't keep this up much longer. Her human endurance was no match for stamina, and eventually would land a killing blow. She needed to end this fight quickly, but how could she possibly defeat such a formidable opponent? Then she remembered something had told her during their journey. Violence breeds violence. When you approach every problem as if it requires a weapon, you begin to see enemies everywhere. Stopped running and faced the war chief directly, dropping the metal rod. "What are you really fighting for?" The massive warrior paused, confused by this unexpected tactic. "What do you mean, human?" "This whole conflict, what's the point? You raid ships, you take their cargo, you kill their crews. But what does it accomplish? What do you gain besides temporary wealth and fleeting satisfaction?" Raised his weapon, but something in his voice made him hesitate. "We gain strength, we prove our superiority." "To who?" pressed. "To other pirates who are too weak to challenge you. To innocent civilians who can't fight back. Where's the honor in that? Where's the real test of strength?" The arena fell silent. Could see confusion and something else, uncertainty, in the war chief's eyes. "You want to know real strength?" continued. "Real strength is saving lives instead of taking them. Real strength is protecting those who can't protect themselves. Real strength is choosing to build instead of destroy." Lies snarled, but his voice lacked its earlier conviction. Weakness disguised as virtue. "Then why haven't you killed me yet?" asked. "You could have ended this fight 5 minutes ago. What's stopping you?" The war chief looked around the arena, seeing his warriors watching intently. For the first time in his life, he was facing an opponent who wasn't trying to beat him with superior violence. Instead, she was challenging everything he believed about strength and power. "Because," began, then stopped. He couldn't find the words to explain the strange reluctance he felt. Sensed her opportunity. "Because deep down, you know there's more to existence than endless fighting. Even warriors need something to protect, something to believe in beyond the next battle." The silence stretched on for long moments, then, incredibly, lowered his weapon. "You speak of things I do not understand, human," he said quietly. "But you have fought with honor and courage. You have shown me that strength can take many forms." The assembled warriors erupted in confused murmurs. Their war chief had never shown mercy before, had never hesitated to kill a defeated opponent. "I cannot give you the victory you seek," continued. "But neither can I kill one who has shown such unexpected wisdom. The combat is declared a draw. You and your allies may pass." Felt her legs give out as the adrenaline faded, but she managed to remain standing. "Thank you, War Chief. You've shown that even the mightiest warriors can choose to show mercy." As returned to the luminous dawn, she was greeted by amazed and relieved who had monitored the entire combat through their sensors. They couldn't believe she had not only survived, but actually earned the respect of the most feared pirate fleet in the sector. "How did you do it?" asked as they prepared to continue their journey to 442C. "How did you defeat a warrior of such skill and experience?" Smiled tiredly. "I didn't defeat him with weapons or tactics. I defeated him with something your people understand better than anyone, the power of choosing compassion over violence." The colony on 442C was saved, and the medical supplies arrived just in time to halt the spread of fever, but knew that something much more significant had happened in that arena. She had planted a seed of doubt in the mind of one of the galaxy's most dangerous beings. What she didn't know was that would spend the following weeks thinking about their encounter, questioning everything he had believed about strength and power. And when word spread throughout the fleet that their war chief had shown mercy to a human, it would begin a transformation that would reshape their entire culture. 47 years after faced war chief in single combat, the galaxy had become a very different place. The seed of change planted in that arena had grown into something nobody could have predicted, fundamentally altering the balance of power throughout the known systems. Fleet Admiral Sarah of the Terran Defense Force stood on the bridge of the flagship, watching through the viewports as the most unlikely alliance in galactic history prepared for what might be their final battle. Arrayed before her were ships from dozens of species, but the sight that would have shocked observers from 5 decades ago was the presence of modified vessels flying alongside human dreadnoughts and science ships. "Admiral," reported her communications officer, Lieutenant Commander James Park, "we're receiving confirmation from all Allied fleets. The consortium has 43 vessels in position. The Brotherhood is reporting 78 warships ready for combat. Various other Allied species have contributed another 112 ships." Sarah nodded, though her attention was focused on the massive space station that dominated the center of their formation. This was Sanctuary Station, the first truly multi-species collaborative habitat in known galactic history. It had been built through the combined efforts of human engineering, science, and manufacturing power, representing everything that was possible when different civilizations chose cooperation over conflict. "Any word from the hegemony fleet?" Sarah asked. "Long-range sensors detect their approach, Admiral. Approximately 300 vessels, including their new Titan-class dreadnoughts. They'll be in weapons range within 2 hours." Sarah felt the familiar weight of command responsibility settling on her shoulders. The hegemony was a coalition of aggressive, militaristic species that had been expanding through this sector of the galaxy for the past decade, conquering or enslaving every civilization they encountered. They saw the growing alliance between humans and reformed as a threat to their expansion, and they had finally decided to eliminate it. "Signal the fleet," Sarah ordered. "All ships are to maintain defensive formations around Sanctuary Station. We're not here to conquer territory. We're here to protect everything we've built together." The transformation of the from raiders to protectors had been the most remarkable development of the past half-century. After War Chief's encounter with, he had begun questioning the fundamental principles of his warrior culture. Instead of raiding defenseless ships, he started seeking out opponents who could offer real challenges. Instead of taking slaves and cargo, he began offering protection to peaceful traders and explorers. The change hadn't come easily or all at once. Many traditionalists had opposed new philosophy, leading to a civil war that split their society. But gradually, more and more warriors began to see the wisdom in his approach. There was more honor in protecting the weak than in preying on them. There was more satisfaction in building alliances than in making enemies. The humans had been the first to recognize this transformation and offer formal alliance. Now Admiral of the Terran Diplomatic Corps had spent years working with to establish mutual trust and understanding. Though, despite their initial skepticism, had eventually joined the alliance as well, contributing their advanced technology and scientific expertise. "Admiral," came a familiar voice over the communications system. "This is War Chief aboard the Redemption. My warriors are ready to stand with you." Sarah couldn't help but smile. The massive leader had aged considerably over the decades, but his voice still carried the same fierce determination that had once made him one of the most feared beings in the galaxy. Now that determination was focused on protecting innocent lives rather than taking them. "Thank you, War Chief," Sarah replied. "Your people's courage has been an inspiration to us all." "We fight not for glory or conquest," responded, "but for the right of all beings to choose their own destiny. This is what the human taught us, and we will not forget that lesson." From another ship in the formation came the melodic tones of Captain, now an elderly but still commanding vessels in the name of scientific exploration and peaceful cooperation. "Admiral, our analysis of hegemony tactics suggests they will attempt to overwhelm our defenses with superior numbers. However, our combined technology should give us advantages they do not expect." Sarah studied the tactical displays showing the approaching enemy fleet. The hegemony had indeed brought overwhelming force to bear, but they had made one critical miscalculation. They expected to face 3 separate fleets with conflicting strategies and poor coordination. Instead, they would encounter a truly unified force that had been training and working together for decades. "All ships, this is Admiral," she broadcast on the fleet-wide channel. "In a few hours, we're going to face the biggest challenge our alliance has ever encountered. The hegemony wants to destroy everything we've built because they can't understand how different species can work together as equals. They see cooperation as weakness and diversity as vulnerability." Sarah paused, looking around the bridge at her mixed crew of humans, and even a few reformed warriors who served as tactical advisors. "They're wrong," she continued. "Our differences make us stronger, not weaker. Human determination, wisdom, and courage. Together, these create something greater than the sum of its parts. We fight not just for our own survival, but for the principle that civilized beings can choose understanding over conquest." As the hegemony fleet approached, Sarah found herself thinking about and the choice she had made in that arena decades ago. Instead of trying to defeat with superior violence, she had appealed to something deeper, the universal desire for purpose and meaning that existed in all sentient beings. "Enemy fleet is entering weapons range," reported the tactical officer. "They're deploying in standard hegemony attack formation, 3 waves of assault designed to overwhelm our defensive perimeter." "Signal all ships," Sarah ordered. "Implement Defense Protocol 7. Vessels provide electronic warfare and sensor coordination. Ships form the first defensive line. Human vessels provide fire support and tactical flexibility." The first wave of hegemony ships struck the Allied formation like a hammer blow. The reformed warriors met them head-on, their powerful vessels trading devastating volleys with the enemy dreadnoughts. But this wasn't the chaotic piracy of their earlier days. Every captain coordinated perfectly with their allies, creating gaps in the enemy formation that human ships exploited with precision strikes. Behind the front lines, science vessels used their advanced sensors to predict enemy movements and coordinate Allied responses. Their peaceful nature had led them to develop the most sophisticated electronic warfare capabilities in the galaxy, and they used these tools to disrupt hegemony communications and targeting systems. "War Chief's ship is taking heavy damage," reported the tactical officer. "Multiple hull breaches on the Redemption." Sarah felt a stab of concern for the old warrior who had become one of her most trusted allies. "Signal the Vanguard and Liberator to provide support. Don't let him face those odds alone." "Admiral," Kame's voice over the communications system, strain evident despite his efforts to sound strong. "Do not risk other ships for my sake. The Redemption can hold the line." "That's exactly the kind of thinking that got us into this alliance," Sarah replied firmly. "Nobody fights alone anymore. We stand together or we fall together." As human reinforcements moved to support the damaged flagship, Sarah saw something remarkable happen on the tactical display. Other ships began adjusting their positions to create a protective formation around the Redemption, while vessels provided covering fire with their defensive weapons. The various species weren't just fighting alongside each other. They were truly fighting as one. The second wave of hegemony ships fared no better than the first. The Allied fleet's coordination and mutual support proved far more effective than the enemy's numerical superiority. Hegemony commanders, trained to expect their opponents to break under pressure, found themselves facing an enemy that actually became stronger as the battle intensified. "Admiral," reported the communications officer, "we're receiving a transmission from the Hegemony flagship. They want to negotiate." Sarah considered the request. The temptation to demand unconditional surrender was strong, especially after the Hegemony's years of aggression and conquest. But she remembered example. Sometimes the greatest victory came not from defeating your enemy, but from transforming them. Put them through, she decided. The Maine displayed the aquatic features of a Hegemony fleet commander, his gill slits fluttering with what appeared to be agitation or fear. "I am Admiral Al of the Hegemony Second Fleet. We did not expect such coordinated resistance." "Admiral Al," Sarah replied calmly, "I'm Fleet Admiral of the Allied Defense Force. We're prepared to continue this battle if necessary, but we'd prefer to find a peaceful resolution." The Hegemony commander's expression showed confusion. "You have the advantage. Why do you not press your attack and destroy us?" Sarah glanced at the tactical display, where Hegemony ships were indeed retreating in disorder, while Allied vessels maintained their defensive formations around Sanctuary Station. It would have been easy to pursue and eliminate the enemy fleet entirely. "Because destruction isn't our goal," Sarah explained. "We fight to protect what we've built, not to conquer others. The galaxy is vast enough for all of us to find a place in it." "This is unexpected," Al admitted. "Our intelligence suggested that your alliance was merely a temporary arrangement of convenience. We did not realize the depth of your cooperation." "Would you like to see what we've accomplished together?" Sarah asked. "Sanctuary Station is open to representatives from all species, including former enemies who are willing to learn about peaceful coexistence." Over the following weeks, a small delegation of Hegemony representatives visited Sanctuary Station, where they encountered something they had never seen before: multiple species working together as genuine equals. Humans shared their engineering expertise with scientists. Warriors trained alongside human marines, teaching each other different combat techniques not for conquest, but for mutual protection. Philosophers debated ethics and morality with human diplomats and reformed leaders. "It is remarkable," Admiral Al admitted to Sarah during one of their discussions. "My species has always believed that only the strong deserve to survive, that cooperation was a sign of weakness, but what you have created here suggests otherwise." Sarah nodded, thinking once again of, and the moment in an arena that had started everything. "One human showed us that strength comes in many forms. Sometimes the greatest strength is the willingness to extend your hand to someone who was once your enemy." War Chief, now bearing scars from dozens of battles fought in defense of innocent lives, joined their conversation. "Admiral speaks truth," he said in his still harsh but now gentle voice. "I was once the terror of this sector, raiding and killing for the pleasure of violence, but Commander showed me that true warriors protect rather than prey upon the defenseless." "And now," Al asked. "Now I have found something worth fighting for," replied. "Not the temporary satisfaction of conquest, but the lasting joy of building something greater than myself." The Hegemony delegation eventually returned to their own space, carrying with them new ideas about cooperation and mutual benefit. Not all of their leaders were receptive to these concepts, but enough were intrigued to begin diplomatic communications with the Alliance. 5 years later, Admiral Sarah stood once again on the bridge of but this time she was watching a very different kind of fleet formation. Ships from over 30 different species moved in perfect coordination around a massive construction project. New Sanctuary, a second collaborative station that would serve as a center for galactic trade, diplomacy, and cultural exchange. Among the construction vessels were ships from the former Hegemony, now calling themselves the Cooperative Commonwealth. They had their own internal transformation, replacing conquest-based expansion with voluntary association and mutual aid. "Admiral," reported her communications officer, "we're receiving a priority transmission from Earth. Admiral wants to speak with you." Sarah smiled as weathered but still determined face appeared on the. Now in her 80s, the woman who had started it all with a single act of courage and wisdom continued to serve as the Alliance's chief diplomat and elder stateswoman. "Sarah," said warmly, "I wanted to personally congratulate you on what we've accomplished here. When I walked into that arena all those years ago, I never imagined it would lead to something like this. You planted the seed, Admiral, Sarah replied. Everything else just grew from the principles you demonstrated. His expression grew thoughtful. I've been thinking about that day a lot lately. I was so focused on saving the colony and honoring the sacrifice of my crew that I didn't realize what I was really doing. I was showing the galaxy that there was an alternative to endless conflict. From another part of the bridge came the familiar melodic tones of Captain, now serving as the station's chief science officer despite his advanced age. Commander, your demonstration of human determination and wisdom that day became the foundation for everything we have built. The principles you showed us have guided our development for nearly 5 decades. War Chief's voice joined the conversation from his own ship nearby. And those principles continue to guide us. Each new species that joins our alliance learns what I learned that day, that true strength comes from protecting others, not dominating them. As Sarah watched the construction of new sanctuary continue, with beings from dozens of different worlds working side by side, she reflected on the remarkable journey that had brought them to this point. It had started with one human's refusal to give up, one alien doctor's commitment to helping others, and one warrior's willingness to question everything he believed about power and strength. Sarah said, I have a question for you. When you challenged that day, did you know what would happen? Did you have any idea it would lead to all this? Was quiet for a moment, considering her answer. Honestly, no. I was just trying to save some colonists and honor the memory of my dead crew. But I think that's the point. We don't always know how our actions will ripple through time. All we can do is try to do the right thing in the moment we're given and trust that goodness will find a way to grow. The transmission ended, and Sarah returned her attention to the construction project before them. New sanctuary would be twice the size of the original station, with facilities for cultural exchange, advanced research, and diplomatic mediation. More importantly, it would serve as a symbol of what was possible when different species chose cooperation over conquest. Admiral, her tactical officer reported, long-range sensors are detecting another fleet approaching our position. Sarah felt a moment of tension before her sensors officer provided additional information. It's a peaceful expedition from the Outer Rim systems. They've heard about the Alliance and want to discuss possible membership. As Sarah prepared to welcome yet another group of beings into their growing community, she thought about the lesson that had taught the galaxy all those years ago. Sometimes the most important victory wasn't won on a battlefield or in a boardroom. Sometimes it was won in the moment when someone chose to extend trust instead of suspicion, understanding instead of fear, hope instead of despair. The Alliance continued to grow, not through conquest or coercion, but through the simple demonstration that different species could work together for mutual benefit. And at the heart of it all was the memory of a human woman who had faced impossible odds and chosen to fight with words and ideas rather than weapons. Every Terran Firearm now bore an inscription honoring and the principles she had demonstrated. But more importantly, every ship in the Alliance fleet carried those same principles into the depths of space, spreading the message that civilization was not about the dominance of the strong over the weak, but about the protection of all life and the celebration of diversity as a source of strength. The galaxy had become a place where a human's determination, us wisdom, and us courage could combine to create something greater than any of them could achieve alone. And it all started with one woman's refusal to accept that violence was the only answer to the challenges facing sentient life among the stars.